Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna do my second what if. What if Anakin Skywalker was trained by Qui-Gon Jinn? And if it's not welcome back, you know what to do. Hit that big red button so next time it will be welcome back. This is going to be my first video which I'm going to split up. This episode I'm going to go over how this would affect episode 1, the gap between episode 1 and 2, and episode 2. Then in my next video I'm going to go over how this would affect the Clone Wars, episode 3 and onwards. Anyway, let's just jump right into things. We open on the finale of episode 1. Obi-Wan jumps back onto the platform which Qui-Gon and Maul are fighting on, but this is when our reality split. Obi-Wan uses force speed to sprint to the other two combatants, stopping in the beam shield just behind Qui-Gon. The beam shields would open, and Master and Apprentice would charge the Sith assassin, entering combat once again. The battle was ferocious, as was Maul, but the advantage was to the Jedi this time. Using their teamwork, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon would begin to overwhelm Maul, and the fight would be finished, with Qui-Gon cutting Maul through his torso, and Obi-Wan force pushing him down the reactor shaft. We come to a few days after episode 3. Anakin is standing before the council with Qui-Gon standing just behind him, his hand over his shoulder, as Mace leaning forward would say, "You must understand, Skywalker. Becoming a Jedi is a tough challenge." "I'm ready. I know I am." Silencing the boy by placing his hand on his shoulder, Qui-Gon would say, "Please, you must see it. Anakin is the chosen one. He must become a Jedi. If it's not out of the question, I might request that I become the boy's master. My master can complete Obi-Wan's training, and let me train the boy to become the Jedi he's meant to be." Yoda would sadly sigh. Knowing Qui-Gon would take nothing but yes for an answer, he would say, "Very well. A Jedi you will become, young Skywalker, with Master Qui-Gon as your master. Understand, do you?" Yes, sir. I do believe that Obi-Wan would complete his final bit of training under the teaching of Dooku. And on that note, Dooku. Would he turn to the dark side? Yes. I feel Dooku's turn to the dark side was inevitable, as he had a lot of disbeliefs in the Jedi that were building up even before Phantom Menace. He only really left the Order after episode 1 because of Qui-Gon's death. That was what tipped him over the edge. But even though Qui-Gon doesn't die in this reality, I think Dooku would still leave, especially considering the fact Palpatine is pulling the strings. Though I would give Dooku a few more years in the Order, but I do think he would still leave. I still feel that Anakin and Obi-Wan would be like brothers in this reality, as they would still go on many missions together and would on occasion train with each other. Yes, while Anakin would still train with Qui-Gon as well, I feel as he got older, his missions with Qui-Gon would decrease and his missions with Obi-Wan would become more frequent. Would Qui-Gon join the Jedi Council? No. Not yet at least, because in my opinion, Qui-Gon would do something in this reality that the Council would very much disagree with. After the events of episode 1, he would go back to Tatooine, and would take Shmi with him. This would get Qui-Gon into a lot of trouble with the Council, but he would stand his ground, saying that Anakin's emotions were always going to be a part of him, and that if they didn't use that well, his fear could lead him down the path of the dark side, and a step in the right direction was going back and saving his mother. While the Council was beyond angered with Qui-Gon, they decided that he was right, and to give Anakin special training to harness his own emotions. And on that note, let's talk about Anakin himself. Anakin would grow so much more powerful in this new reality. In our reality, Anakin had a brother figure in someone like Obi-Wan. What Anakin really needed was a father figure, someone like Plo Koon, Mace Windu, or in this reality the perfect one, Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon would do a much better job at honing Anakin's abilities than Obi-Wan did, as he was a much better teacher, and Anakin saw him with a lot more respect. But Qui-Gon also knew Anakin had a lot of anger, so he actually got help from members of the Council like Mace Windu, who helped teach Anakin his own style, Vapar, a fighting style that Anakin would go on to master. and would eventually wield his own purple lightsaber. This would also begin to build another father-son bond between both Mace and Anakin, and in this reality, they'd actually be very fond of each other. He would also learn from other Jedi in the temple, learning Form 4 from Yoda, learning how to use Force Judgment from Plo Koon, and learning how to use Form 3 from Obi-Wan. This was a big problem for Palpatine. Palpatine needed Anakin to trust him, but Anakin already had parental figures in Shmi, Qui-Gon and Mace. Anakin would still see Palpatine as a father figure, but he wouldn't be as dependent on him as he was. But still, Palpatine did what he could to manipulate Anakin, but in this reality he had to tread much more carefully. As one wrong foot, he could accidentally reveal himself to this much wiser Anakin, or he could even be figured out by someone like Qui-Gon. By the time Attack of the Clones rolled round, we would be left with a much more powerful and wise Anakin Skywalker. Starts off relatively the same. Padme comes to Coruscant narrowly missing an assassination attempt, and Palpatine requests that both Anakin and Obi-Wan are assigned to protect her. Now, how would this affect Anakin and Padme's relationship? Now, because Anakin in this reality was much less prone to emotion, and was much wiser, I think he would try distance himself from Padme, as yes, I do believe he would still have a crush on her. Meaning it would be more down to Padme to make the moves. This also means we wouldn't get any cringy romance like we did in the original film, which also sadly means we wouldn't get such lines like,
"I don't like sand."
Anakin and Padme are friendly with each other, and we can get some of that Obi-Wan Anakin banter. They then chase Zam Wesell, who failed to assassinate Padme, where she is then killed by Jango Fett. Anakin and Obi-Wan would report back to the Council, where they would still assign Obi-Wan to check out the clones on Kamino, and Anakin to escort Padme, something that Anakin was secretly happy about. Everything on the Obi-Wan side of the story would go exactly the same. Him going to Kamino and checking the clones, him meeting Jango and Boba, and chasing them to Geonosis, where he would be captured. Things on Anakin's story would go quite different, as in this reality, Anakin and Padme would not go to Tatooine, as Shmi wouldn't be in danger in this reality as she had already been saved long ago. While Anakin did love spending time with Padme, he was still conflicted with his emotions, as he had been taught by many Jedi that it is wrong, but it didn't feel wrong. What he really needed was guidance, but who could he talk to? Obi-Wan? No, well, they were like brothers. Obi-Wan at the very least would tell Anakin what he was feeling was wrong. How about Mace or Yoda? No, that's the worst choice. While Anakin did see them like friends, they were the heads of the temple, and it was almost their duty to turn him in if he had to report something like this. Then there was his master. Anakin was very tempted to contact Qui-Gon, but while Qui-Gon did show different ways from the Jedi and disagreed with them on a lot of things, Anakin didn't want to cause his master the disappointment that he had raised someone who had rejected the Jedi ways, especially considering all the trouble Qui-Gon had gone to just to make him become a Jedi. And while he doubted Qui-Gon would turn him in, he still didn't want to chance it. There was really one person he could talk to. Opening up his holotab, he would contact his mother. Shmi would tell Anakin that she really didn't know what to do in this kind of situation, but to do what makes him happy. She would say if following the rules of the Order was really what made him truly happy, then to do that. But if being with Padme brought him even greater joy, then to go for it. And would decide that he would tell Padme, but decided to calm his mind before he did so. Kneeling down to meditate, he was immediately hit with a Force vision. One of his closest friends being rained down by blaster fire and being taken away for interrogation. His eyes would snap open. Jumping up and summoning his lightsaber to him, he would run to the ship, leaving a bemused Padme on Naboo as he would set course to Geonosis. Immediately holotabbing over to Mace Windu, he would report of Obi-Wan being captured. Mace would tell Anakin to return to the temple immediately and that they needed permission from the Senate. Anakin would argue, saying that Obi-Wan was like a brother to him. Mace would try calm him, saying that he understood and that he was sorry, but this was out of their command, that they had to wait for permission. Anakin would sigh, saying that he'd return, but he wouldn't. Continuing his path to Geonosis, he would land a ship. Jumping out and igniting his lightsaber, he would enter the droid facility. Cutting down any droids or Geonosians who were foolish enough to get in his way, Anakin would fight his way through the workshop with little effort. Using the Force as a guide, he would fight his way to where Obi-Wan was being held. Cutting open the door, he would be met with Obi-Wan hanging unconscious in suspension. Before he could react, he would be hit with a huge electric shock, but would be able to recover. Jumping up, looking round, he would be surrounded by Droidicas and Jango Fett. Raising his blaster at the Jedi, he would say, "Don't move, scum!" Anakin's age would boil, igniting his lightsaber when suddenly a voice came from behind. "Don't be so foolish, Fett. He could kill you all with little effort." Be hit by a second electric shock, knocking him unconscious. Qui-Gon would report Anakin's findings to the Council, who would immediately bring it up to the Senate. This means Palpatine would still get emergency powers to get the clone army moving. Just like our original reality, Obi-Wan and Anakin, but this time without Padme, would be sentenced to death. The arena fight actually goes really different, as when Anakin got out of his chains, he would have a completely different approach. Using the Force to try calm the creature's mind, Anakin would approach it. The creature would let out a roar, but Anakin would calm its mind, turning it from a ferocious beast into a docile creature. You and the other Separatist leaders were too entranced in what was happening in front of them to notice two cloaked figures beginning to approach where they stood. Mace Windu would ignite his lightsaber under Jango Fett's throat. As before anyone could react, a second lightsaber would ignite, blocking the entrance. Qui-Gon. Dooku would turn and would say, "Qui-Gon, my old apprentice, it's been too long." Qui-Gon's face would be that of resentment as he would say, "You don't get to call me that after what you've become." Dooku would show an expression of disgruntlement, but Mace would get there before him, saying, "This party's over." As when the Jedi around the arena would ignite their lightsabers, jumping down to combat the droids, Dooku would look down amused as he would say, "Well, let's see how the great Jedi Order deal against the new Separatist alliance." And the droids would begin to walk towards the entrance, and Qui-Gon would effortlessly dispatch them. Seeing this as a distraction, Jango would set Mace's cloak ablaze, making him leap over the balcony to join his Jedi comrades. Qui-Gon would move to join him. As Jango would raise his blaster, Dooku would raise his hand to halt him. Giving his master one final look of resentment, he would jump down to join his Jedi comrades. Battle would go very much how it had. This time Anakin would be much better, using his improved abilities to cut down a lot more droids, especially as in this reality he wouldn't be stuck to Padme, but the fight would still end with the Jedi being pinned down. I have no doubt in my mind that Qui-Gon would be one of the Jedi to survive. Dooku would yell down, giving the Jedi one chance to surrender. This time talking directly to his apprentice, Qui-Gon would look up in disgust at his master and would say, "You obviously don't know me very well if you think I might even consider joining you." Dooku would give a sad look, as he didn't want to do this, but he had no choice, as he'd say, "Very well," giving the signal to his droids to open fire. As the Jedi readied themselves for another rain of fire, this is when Yoda and the clones arrived, saving them and getting them into the LAAT gunships, and starting the Battle of Geonosis. Anakin and Obi-Wan's gunship would chase after Dooku's ship like he had in the original reality. They would confront him. Obi-Wan and Anakin would both ignite their lightsabers as Anakin would yell, "You'll pay for the Jedi you murdered, Dooku." Dooku would laugh and would say, "Ignorance is the mother of failure." Obi-Wan would say, "We'll take him together." Anakin would nod to his friend and they'd both begin to circle Dooku. The three Force users would charge. The battle would be intense. They would be little more than flashes of red, blue and green. Dooku was fighting as hard as he could, but he was beginning to get overwhelmed. The more angry Dooku got, Anakin simply used that against him. Obi-Wan would move behind, drawing Dooku's attention as Anakin would take this opportunity to cut off his hands, as Yoda would walk in, just to be met with Anakin placing his blade to Dooku's throat and saying, "In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you're under arrest." Qui-Gon would meet with both Anakin and Obi-Wan afterwards, telling them how proud he was of them. Palpatine would be enraged that Dooku had been captured. He had failed him. But he knew it was too early to move on to another apprentice, requesting that Dooku was moved into the possession of the Senate. While Dooku was being transported, Palpatine would hire many bounty hunters like Cad Bane, Aurra Sing, Bossk, and many more to ambush Dooku's transport and to rescue him. Palpatine, when he got his hands on him, would torture Dooku with Force lightning, making sure that Dooku would never fail him again. He would give Dooku prosthetic arms to replace his own ones. Yoda, Mace, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan would meet, discussing Dooku's escape. They knew that Dooku was without a doubt going to start a war. Yoda would sigh, turning to look outside at the clone army. He would say, "Well, at least we have our own, we do." Qui-Gon would lean out, staring at the clones. Something felt off about them, but he couldn't place his finger on it as he said, "Of course, they fight for us, for now." Anyway, that's the end of the video. I hope you did enjoy. I'm going to try get part 2 out as soon as possible, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.